9 minutes past 1, me, Nihal, on the BBC Asian Network. So, what's happening? I am talking about the extradition of Talha Ahsan, Saeed Talha Ahsan, to America, where he is now in solitary confinement. He suffers from Asperger's. Gary McKinnon was due to be extradited, but the Home Secretary blocked that. He also suffers from Asperger's. McKinnon, Ahsan. Could it be that one is Muslim, one is not? And that is why the Muslim boarded a plane to America and the non-Muslim stayed here in the UK? Or is it because the charges were different? And that makes all the difference. And to ignore that is just being paranoid. Mohammed Shafiq is from the Ramadan Foundation. Good afternoon, Mohammed.
Good afternoon, Neil.
Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, I should say.
Yeah, good to be back.
Racist? Or just a case of looking at both of these gentlemen case by case and calling one a terrorist and the other one a computer hacker?
Well, I think, first of all, the point you made earlier on, which is absolutely right, these are allegations, these are not proven, and they both, all three of them have the right to a free and fair trial.
Yes.
I think what really stinks is that the Home Secretary announces a new procedure in regards to a forum being set up so that a British judge could decide whether that charges could be brought in this country.
Yeah.
Why that announcement wasn't made 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago, when Babar Ahmed and Talha Ahsan was sent to the United States. And so people will read into this that there seems to be one rule for Muslims and there's one rule for everybody else. If you look at the Gary McKinnon's allegation, over a 12-month period, he hacked into 50 US top high-level security websites, changed things, deleted things, put the United States security at risk. So I think you're right to say they're different charges, but they both have a detrimental effect on the security of both the United States and the United Kingdom. And in the case of Babar Ahmed and Talha Ahsan, they were both accused of running a website that was based that was registered in the United States, but based here in the UK. So we're not saying that we don't want Babar Ahmed and Talha Ahsan to face trial, but we want them to be. We would have liked them to have faced trial in this country, and it just smacks of double standards and racism. I think it's very clear about that.
Let's speak to Tom in Watford, who called in. Good afternoon, Tom.
Hello there, Nihal.
Double standards and racism, according to Mohammed Shafiq from the Ramadan Foundation.
Well, I think he's absolutely right. I mean, I'm not a Muslim, as you know, and I'm not a Pakistani or I don't have a brown skin like them, but I think he is absolutely right. It is double standards and racism. I'm shocked. I'm truly shocked at this decision, because I remember listening to Babar Ahmed's dad about 10 days ago. Do you know what he said? He said, now what's going to happen now that these 5 have been sent to the United States? They're going to change the law, which is what they're proposing, and you won't find any of these situations occurring again. It's absolutely shocking how anyone can say that there isn't a racist motivation behind this. I don't know that the government are racist. I can't say that. But what I can say is the reaction you've seen from the establishment in this country, I think there is no doubt that there is racism involved in it.
Well, let's speak to someone who's just part of that establishment. Okay, go on. Go on, Tom.
Let me put this to you. I saw on Sky News paper review yesterday a senior journalist, Jane Moore from The Sun, talk about Abu Hamza. Oh, well, Abu Hamza's a terrorist and the rest of them. You know, they're mixing up these cases, Abu Hamza and the rest of them. It's like saying, well, he's brown-skinned, he's got a Muslim name, so we might as well lump them all together. The cases are completely different, and I've only just had a look at this case because I was all for sending all of these guys over there. But having seen what happened yesterday, you cannot fail but believe that there is a racist element to this.
OK, wait there, Tom. Anita Kapoor, Conservative councillor, you're part of the said establishment. Anita, Tom, not even Asian, sees it. He said he cannot help but see this as racist.
As I said before, I do not wholeheartedly support the extradition treaty for the simple fact that a person should face punishment on the soil that they committed the crime. And of course, if it...
But you wouldn't describe this decision as racist?
No, I wouldn't. Secondly, I hope...
But why not? Why not?
They're two different allegations. I mean, terrorism is totally different from hacking computers. And
Wait a minute. He wasn't hacking some games computer. He hacked into military, and he also mentioned the fact that this is, that America is state-sponsored terrorism. That's what he was saying.
I'm not taking away.
The Americans obviously thought it was very serious.
Of the crime. I am not taking that away. But terrorism, and we have seen it on the tube. We've seen people die, etc., etc. You cannot put them in the same category.
Yeah, that might be true, but let's take a look at this. Gary McKinnon, the grounds upon which he has not been sent to the United States is that he is suffering from Asperger's syndrome and he might commit suicide if he were sent. You can make the same case. That's the grounds. It doesn't matter what he's facing over there. And in fact, you could argue that McKinnon's case has been more injurious to the United States than this Talha Ahsan. Far more injurious. And the point is that Talha Ahsan, who's suffering from Asperger's syndrome, who could commit suicide, and they've got doctors to prove this, or to state this, he has been sent to the United States. It is clear as daylight. Anyone can see this. This is completely wrong. Because he's got a Muslim name, because he's got a brown skin, he's been sent. And do you notice how all these delays in sending McKinnon, all these delays, it soon came to an end as soon as 10 days after these guys had been sent over to the United States. Abu Hamza's a different case. But the two guys who went to Connecticut, I mean, this is a technicality. They went there because the server was based in Connecticut. That's the basis upon which they have been extradited. And if you look, what was that guy, the guy you had on from the Ramadan Foundation?
Mohammed Shafiq is still with us, yes.
Right, well, what he said is absolutely right. I mean, if you look at if you look at this, the case against McKinnon,
yes,
is far graver than the case against Ahsan.
But why would you say that? Because if indeed, as the Americans pointed out, that allegedly Mr. Ahsan and Mr. Ahmed were involved in running websites, jihadi websites, that were there to raise money for the Taliban and other quote-unquote extremists, then that directly puts American lives at risk, does it not? Whereas hacking into US military computers and leaving silly messages saying, America's this and America's that, isn't the same gravity, is it, Tom? Do you honestly think that they're two the same?
Yeah, because you see, the issue for me is that the basis upon which the extradition was stopped in the case of McKinnon, the basis upon which that was stopped is no different. The case is no different, really, to Ahsan. I mean, I find that the most shocking of all. I mean, that is just unbelievable that you could come up with two different conclusions. I mean, my own view is that not all, because David Davis is fine on this, but there are a number of Tory backbenchers who, quite frankly, are racists. And I don't have any hesitation in saying it. And when you look at the Daily Mail and their treatment of the two cases here, they've lumped Talha Ahsan and Babu Ahmed, they've lumped those with Abu Hamza purely because they know Hamza is the pantomime villain, and I do believe that Hamza's got a lot to answer for anyway. I've got no truck with him, but the two cases that have gone to Connecticut, I think, is absolutely shocking. It's scandalous.
All right, Tom, thank you. Mohammed, would you like to come back on that? I mean, you agree, obviously, with everything that Tom has said, because you two have just had a bit of a love-in, but about Anita, Anita's points.
Well, I do believe that both cases did warrant investigation and charges should be brought on. The point is the government changed the rules yesterday, and they could have changed the rules 10 days ago. And it's absolutely right. None of us will lose any sleep over Abu Hamza, who's been extradited. I think he was a vile man who was involved in a lot of unsavory things that put our country's safety and security at risk and radicalized a lot of young people. But to suggest that Babar Ahmed and Talha Ahsan, are comparison to what they did.
Sorry, Mohammed.
The issue, and sorry, Nihal, I was just going to say one more thing. The point is that Talha Ahsan has the same condition. According to doctors' reports, he was also suicidal, and there was a real risk to his human rights. And the irony of the Conservative Party, who's argued against the Human Rights Act for the last 4 or 5 years, is now using the Human Rights Act as an excuse not to send Gary McKinnon, and it just smacks of double standards.
Okay, Mohammed, thank you very much indeed for that. Saeed has said the charges have nothing to do with Theresa May's decision. She decided on humanitarian grounds, i.e. Gary was suicidal. Can you read out her reasons to clarify the issue? Well, yes, I do have the statement. Mrs Theresa May said, "Since I came into office, the sole issue on which I've been required to make a decision is whether Mr McKinnon's extradition to the United States would breach his human rights. Mr McKinnon is accused of serious crimes, but there is also no doubt that he is seriously ill. He has Asperger's syndrome and suffers from depressive illness. The legal question before me is now whether the extent of that illness is sufficient to preclude extradition. After careful consideration of all the relevant material, I have concluded that Mr McKinnon's extradition would give rise to such a high risk of him ending his life that a decision to extradite would be incompatible with Mr McKinnon's human rights." So, Anita, not a mention here of the gravity of the charges levied against both men, purely on whether this man is a suicide risk or not, when it was clearly stated, was it not, that Saeed Talha Ahsan was a suicide risk as well. Now do you wonder as to whether the religion is...
No. What I wonder is that why were this issue about this particular state of disease with the other gentleman, I don't understand why this didn't go to her, because she said this was the only case that she had to decide in. So what were the lawyers doing for the other cases? So I cannot comment on, why the particular lawyers or the defenders didn't take this to her at that point. Secondly, now that they say that the law is changed, and I welcome the law, because for the simple fact that I feel that anybody who, anybody who does a crime or behaves in a certain way that is unacceptable to society in this country should be judged by our legal system. But if the crime is done on somebody else's soil or against somebody else, then they should go and face judgment there. People who are born in this country have a right to a fair justice or a fair legal system in this country. Those who are citizens and we find their views unacceptable as a society should then have the privilege of living in this country or this citizenship taken away.
Okay, Anita, thank you very much indeed for that. Gopi said, "It certainly reeks of double standards. However, I think it needs to be determined what exactly could have been achieved with the database McKinnon accessed. We live in the world where knowledge is power, where true or false intelligence can cost lives. McKinnon accessed a military database. There could have been all manner of things on there. To be honest, I feel they're as bad as each other. The decisions on their futures should have been the same, extradition or no extradition. I